ZuluTime, episode number 2. YouTubers, how are you guys doing? Facebookers, how are you guys doing? Today, we're going to be talking about the weird drink that increased my energy by 5%. The weird drink that increased my energy by 5%. What is the weird drink that increased my energy by 5%? So, what's the backstory here? As I was a kid, I remember that, we were always told, like, eat your greens, eat your greens, eat your greens. And in Colombia, when I used to go out to the farms, or when we go out to the countryside, we always used to, like, have amazing juices. And I just love these juices that we had from in farms and things like that. And then as you start growing older, the desire that I had is like, okay, how can I increase my energy like by 10 times? Coffee is good, coffee has its benefits, but you do get a lot of this with coffee, ups and downs. So I was thinking, like, how can I increase my energy by, like, by a lot? And so, I started looking into diet, of course, because of my job. Like I was telling you guys yesterday, my whole transformation, and how I started looking at diet and exercise and medications, especially to treat things like diabetes. So I started looking into diet, right? And when I'm looking into diet, I had to kind of learn it on my own, because in medical school, we really don't get a lot of teaching in diet. So, we get like basic diet and exercise teaching in medical school, which is kind of crazy. So I had to go on my own and start learning about diet and exercise. I started reading a couple of books and everything. One thing that really helped me was trying to look for other teachers that would help me, right? Because I didn't know anything. So I was like the first obstacle that I hit when I went to learn about diet. Like, I didn't know anything, so I had to go learn, right? And then internally, I had to, like, change what I was eating. So that was kind of like a new thing. I had to change what I was eating, and so I had to walk the talk, So I went forward and I started learning about diet, and I started spending a bunch of time with, like, for instance, I would Mary. She started going into eating strictly vegan, and so I started, like, eating that, and I saw that it helped her, and so that was pretty cool. And then I started hanging out with somebody who was like ketogenic diet, and they did like weightlifting, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then I got into weightlifting myself. What's happening, Theo? What is happening, amigo? If you got any questions about green juicing, man, let me know. and so I started trying to learn all of this stuff, and I realized, and so when I go in, for instance, like bodylifters, and they do like fasting and caffeine, and so I started learning, how do they build muscle, and so I started learning about that, and then I realized, the behavior change. Like, I would have to, like, start, they would kind of get me on for like a month. I would, like, just do vegan diet, right? And how would I feel? And it was kind of like an experimentation time. And how would I feel if I did intermittent fasting? How would my body change? And I could definitely see the difference, And so internally, I started really to realizing how much, when I changed my own diet, my body did change a lot. My energy levels, the way my body, if I put on fat, or if I slim down, or if I build weight. And so all these different things started happening, and I started noticing them. So I was feeling, pretty good. A couple of the things that really made my difference about diet, how it makes an impact, was when I came across the work of Dr. Ornish. And Dr. Ornish was talking, about 30 years ago. The story is kind of crazy. A very well-known cardiologist, who's actually in San Diego right now. She was a leading interventional cardiologist, so the lady who puts stents on people when they like having heart attacks, right? And so this guy named Dr. Ornish at the time was looking into diet and how come diet like could make a big difference in people with heart attacks and things like that. And so then she went, you know, she came across this guy, and Dr. Ornish at the time asked Mimi, this cardiologist, that could patients of her that were about to go and get a stent, could they try to go into this protocol that he was designing so that they could improve their hearts. And what they started noticing is that, yeah, I mean, that it was amazing. And so what Dr. Ornish showed, like over 10 and 15 years of work, was that you could actually reverse heart disease. You could actually reverse atherosclerotic disease, which is kind of like, you know, when you have your piping in your house and it gets clogged and it causes blockages. It's the same way in the body. You know, when we get blocked in the heart, that's what gives us a heart attack. And so through diet and through different processes like, you know, relaxation techniques and community and diet, they're actually able to reverse heart disease. And so when I saw this data, that impacted me a lot. You know, now Medicare pays for that stuff. And so that changed my perception a lot about the power of diet and exercise, right? And then the second thing I think that impacted me a lot was looking into the Blue Zone study. And the Blue Zones, if you haven't heard about, is actually those places in the world where people live past more longevity. They have more longevity than any other people around the world. So they live longer and they stay healthier the longest. And the cool thing is that what they found is that these people actually have more, in their diets, they actually drink 95-5. So what that means is that, not drink, but they eat vegetables 95-5%, like meat and other, you know, not so healthy, depending on the way that you're looking at it too. But mainly, we know that the people who are in these blue zones eat like 95% greens and fruits, vegetables and fruits. And so, you know, that kind of tells you something right there, that if, you know, if like, I think the way to look at it is almost like, you know, if you want to learn wealth building, you go learn from somebody who's done it already, right? So looking at the people who are able to live the longest, the healthiest, you start realizing that the patterns that they have, there are patterns to that. And so I think those two things really changed my perspective about diet and exercise. And then, you know, so then as I go on this journey, then, you know, one of the first obstacles that I hit is actually like being able to relate this to my patients, or to make them see, or allow them to see, or show them that there is actually, you know, that makes a huge difference. And so I didn't know how to translate this. One time I came across this movie, which I would absolutely recommend. It's called Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. And I came across this movie and I watched the thing. His name is Joe Cross, and I don't know if you've heard of it. If you haven't heard of it, and you're looking for ways to improve, you know, the function of your body and optimizing your body, I would definitely watch this. And so when people ask me, do green juices work? Do vegetables work? Like, is that good for me? You know, I think a lot of times, like, instead of thinking like, is this content that I'm giving you right now, is that good? Instead of looking at it that way, treat it more like a self-experimentation, right? Like, experiment yourself and see what happens to your own body. And so that's what Joe Cross does in this movie, Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. He actually goes and goes in a green juice fast. That's what he does. I'm not saying that's what you got to do. If you want to do it, go ahead. But that's what he does, right? And he shows the whole process. And he was overweight, and he had this thing called, he had rashes everywhere. They call him this fancy name called urticarious vasculitis. I think this is the disease that he showed that he had in that movie, and it's pretty much like horrible rashes everywhere in your body. And they were giving him bunch of steroids and bunch of medications, which steroids were actually making him increase his weight, making his problem bigger. So it's just crazy. But he goes in this whole trip and this whole journey of just drinking green juice. And over the period of the movie, it's amazing to watch how this guy just like starts dropping the weight, starts feeling better, his rashes start going away, and it's just, you know, his health is improving. Medications start going away. So when I watched this movie, I was like, wow, like that's awesome. That is great, because that you can experience it through what he experienced, of how this really changed his whole body, how this really changed his health. And so you can definitely see that. And then I realized, like, wow, like that's awesome. So, you know, a lot of times when my patients ask me now in the hospital or in consults, and they ask me about it, I show them a little bit of this clip. And, you know, it's so crazy, because what I've seen is that many of them even have like emotional, like, you know, they get like pretty emotional with it. Some of them start crying, even big dudes. And they start just feeling like there is a way out, right? And I think that makes them click, that there is a way out. Actually, you know, green juices is just one of them. There is many ways out, but that's like one of them, and it's amazing to see that happening. So you know, so I've created this book about green juices, and myself, you know, I've incorporated into my life, and I kind of get off and on of it, right? And then I came across this other mentorship program called Warrior by Garrett White, and it's pretty cool. I mean, they're crazy as hell. So you know, if you're not hardcore or you know, if you're faded by like cursing and stuff like that, I would not recommend this at all. It's like business guys who are just like very kind of crazy, right? But it's awesome, all the content and the depth in psychology and the struggles that he's overcome and what he's built, and so many men that he's helped. It's really awesome. And one of the things that he teaches there is the green juice, you know, every morning the green juice. And so that really actually was what inspired me to actually incorporate it daily, you know, and I've been doing it for months now. And I can definitely tell the difference. I mean, my energy level is about 5% higher, about 5% higher, I would say. I mean, so 5 to 10%, a little bit more energy. Some of them suck sometimes, you know, because I'm just learning how to make them, and I just try different things, but some of them are so good. And so, but then what is the conflict? You know, I ran into like another conflict, because then I'm like, how do I make these juices? You know, how do I make these juices? And then how do I make them fast, because I'm so busy? And so I started looking at different recipes, and I found different ways of doing it, right? Sometimes I just chop everything up for a whole week and put them in Ziploc bags, so I can just pull them out and throw them in the blender really quickly. Sometimes I actually have like little green packages that I get from the store, so if I don't feel like cutting up anything, or if there is nothing that been cut up that I've cut up already, I just throw that, and it's like super quick. Another trick that I've learned is that that I can have like green powder too, right? And I think what's really helped with that, because it has a lot of fiber. So if you have a problem with like regularly having digestion, then you know this is gonna be a magic bullet for you. You're not gonna have a problem with that at all anymore after this. And so, you know, I think so far what I've realized is that, you know, you know, green juices have really like increased my energy about, like, I say 5%. Definitely my stomach feels a lot healthier. And I've learned a lot more about diet. And I think the way I incorporated is because I was doing heavy lifting, or like muscle building. And one of the things that I was experimenting with was actually intermittent fasting. And it was amazing how fast you lose the weight, how fast you get cut, especially if you're lifting. And all the studies show. If you have any questions about the studies about intermittent fasting, just shoot me an email. I'll send you all the links. But it is crazy how fast you actually grow muscle, and it is scientifically shown that actually your muscle bulking increases when you do intermittent fasting. The problem was that when I was doing intermittent fasting, I felt like crap by 11 a.m. because I was doing not eating anything, only black coffee until 11 a.m. and you feel kind of weak, right? So I was like, okay, how can I get something in my system that is not a lot of calories per se, but it gives me fuel? And so I started incorporating the green juices in there, and still not eating anything until 11 a.m. And it's really giving me about a 5% more energy boost, I would say. And the other cool thing about it is that you get, I think you get, when people ask me why it works, I think two things. The main thing is crowding out, meaning that you put something in your body already that is good, and so it's gonna crowd out all the bad stuff. And so you start the day with taking a decision to take something good into your body, to put in your body like good fuel. It's like going to the gas station and you decide to put good fuel in your body. And I think the second thing is that, of course, you get so many micronutrients with greens and vegetables, and the science shows it. And the third thing is that it's like quick. And so it's like you start with a salad, right? And so I think all those things are pretty, that's what I've experienced with green juicing. And so, for me, that's how it's been. And I think that makes the end of ZuluTime pretty short today. Great stuff though. If you guys have any questions, drop them down. If you guys have any suggestions for any theme to talk about in ZuluTime, episode number 3 or 4 or 5, let me know underneath. I will talk about that. Here we're gonna be talking about health, technology, change, strategy, business, relationships, everything that goes into our life. So looking forward to connecting with all of you. Episode number 3 in ZuluTime. It's been great having you all, and you all gonna have a great day. And before we go, ZuluTime is because Zulu, of course, from Zuletas or Zulu, they used to call me Zulu in residency. And also because it's ZuluTime, like what the pilots use. So is the fact that we're like is one time for the whole world. So it's like we're a village, we're a village, and the way forward is to collaborate, and especially relating with health, really helping each other in different countries, and people helping each other. As we saw in the Ebola, what happened with the Ebola, we're pretty connected, and one thing can affect us all, even if we're far away from it, or seemingly so. So again, thank you all for tuning in into ZuluTime episode number 2. Until next time, Dr. Z here. Take care. All right.